Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to episode 115 of the BJJ Brick Podcast. I'm Gary, and I'm here with my partner in crime, Byron. How are you today, Byron?
Gary, I'm doing great. Had a wonderful Christmas. How was yours?
Christmas is always good. A few days off, got to spend it with some family and friends, got to eat a ton. What else could I ask for?
I don't know. Yeah, my diet does go down pretty bad during Christmas and New Year's time, but
I could tell yesterday when I was rolling that I got tired pretty quick, and I've been working out all this time, so I assume it's due to a bunch of cookies and cake and pie and all that stuff. So that's what I'm blaming it on.
Good news, Gary. That's going to change.
What? Well, I don't know about that because I eat like that all the time.
Yeah. But, speaking of change,
probably a little less.
Speaking of change, Gary, we have BJJ for Change this week.
Yes, we got Chris Martin as our interview today. He's from BJJ for Change. The website is bjjforchange.org. And, man, he's just doing great stuff for, kids around the world to bring jiu-jitsu to them. Yeah,
basically, they're he'll tell the story, but they're going to help underprivileged children do jiu-jitsu, basically, is their goal. And if you think about, Gary, think about your life, I think about mine, like all the different things that jiu-jitsu has brought to me, the social connections, especially with kids, like you realize hard work does pay off and things don't come easily to you, but you gotta work at them. And just like these changes that jiu-jitsu makes, teach that to kids that are having a tough time. And, it's going to be amazing the results it can make, for the children that are able to start training when they used to not be able to.
Yeah, it gives them something constant in life. They realize that if they work hard, they're going to go somewhere. They're going to have mentors to look up to, and just a great organization, like you said. How much jiu-jitsu has brought to your life, and it's going to help these little kids out.
Yeah. Gary, did you do any sports when you were a little kid?
Yes. Yep. I actually grew up playing sports my whole life.
Could you imagine if
basketball, baseball, but never any combat sports?
Could you imagine what it would be like if one of them was jiu-jitsu? Like what would
I know. I couldn't imagine how good I'd be right now. It would be nice.
Yeah, and just like the lessons that you would learn in that and things, and hopefully you'd have liked it as a kid. But if you did, it would have been an amazing experience for you. And I'm thinking the same thing for me. I wrestled a little bit, but if I did jiu-jitsu as a little kid, I would like to make the old Byron, the little Byron from long ago. Not that long ago, a pretty long time ago, do jiu-jitsu and just kind of learn some of the lessons, even if it wasn't, that much. I learned so much more about jiu-jitsu off the mat. So,
yeah, that's true.
But should be. It's a great interview, and it's great to help BJJ for Change get the message out, and we'll have a lot of discussion about that in a little bit.
Yep, and hey, so you don't ever miss an episode, definitely get on our email list. We've got a link to it on our show notes there. It'll tell you every week, so you don't miss an episode. It'll email you to remind you, and you also get some free gifts, some free little audio gifts there for getting on our email list.
At the bottom of that email list, there's a Dropbox folder. Click on that, and a link will pop up with a bunch of files in them. And one of the files, or several of the files, are chapters of the audiobook that we sell. The audiobook is $11.99. It's called Your First Year of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or BJJ. And I'd like to mention just chapter 2 is your first month of BJJ. So everything from like walking in the door for the first time, what to expect, and dealing with your potential teammates, and talking to the instructor or the owner, and what to look for in a gym, and really what's going on during your first month, which would be a very difficult month. I mean, to start something new. I remember anything you start as new is a little bit intimidating at first. And just imagine, like, jiu-jitsu, that's kind of intimidating if like, it's hard for me to remember not training jiu-jitsu and what it was like the day I walked in, but I'm sure I was a little nervous, and are these guys going to, be beating me up all the time, and what's it going to be like? that sort of thing. But so that chapter is really geared at helping you through your first month and helping you expect the right thing. And I remember having a new person come in and train, and they had the audiobook, and he was doing all the norms correctly. He'd put on his little sandals and go to the restroom and come out, and his gi was always clean and nails were short and all these. I'm like, man, this guy's, it's like he knows all the little social norms and he's not breaking. I don't have to tell him any of them. And then I remembered that he had the audiobook, and he was just kind of a leg up on a lot of other kids who have to, or students who have to be told those things. He was just doing them automatically. So that was kind of nice.
You want to know the cool thing is when you first start training is normally the guy who starts training about the same time as you do. As long as you both keep with it, you guys become very good friends. And the crazy thing is, the very first day I showed up to train, Byron was there watching to decide to train. And like a couple weeks later, he came back to start training. And we've been training ever since. That's the crazy thing is, I'll never forget the first day you were sitting there watching. You were sitting in the chairs watching, and then you came to train, and we've been training partners ever since, and that's kind of cool.
That's great. Back in 2002, I believe. That's weird. Gary, you beat me by a couple weeks, man. You got a little jump on me there.
But you beat me by a couple belts.
Well, I just need to get you to start putting the gi on, that's all. But if you're interested in having a little help getting through your first year of training, or maybe just some advice, and you're still fairly new at jiu-jitsu, check out the audiobook, Your First Year in BJJ. It's $11.99. There'll be links to it on the show notes or on the website as well. All right, Gary, let's keep things moving. I want to get the quote of the week out here from John Quincy Adams.
John, is he? He's a blue belt, two-stripe, right?
Yeah, I think he made it to blue belt level. I'm not quite sure about that. My historical records are not mentioning that, but John Quincy Adams, he's a little bit ahead of the curve as far as blue belts in the United States. And brains. He's good in the brains category as well. His quote is this: "Patience and perseverance have a magical effect before which difficulties disappear and obstacles vanish." So he's a bit of a magician as well, but basically patience and perseverance will help get rid of your difficulties and obstacles. I think that to me that relates to jiu-jitsu. It's like if you're that white belt and your obstacle is that purple belt, without patience, you're not gonna get to that level, and without perseverance and coming in and training hard, you're not gonna get to that level.
And that's a big thing is a lot of us aren't very patient. This is something we learn through jiu-jitsu. The nice thing about jiu-jitsu is you don't get belts very quick, like some other sports or some other martial arts. It's a long time to go from belt to belt. You have to stick with it. You have to show dedication. You have to persevere. And patience and perseverance, go hand in hand. If you have both those and you keep going at it, you're gonna get there. Just don't quit. Yeah,
I think that even this quote, you think about how you need the perseverance and the patience to get good at jiu-jitsu. It's great for kids, in this culture where we want things like now, and everything's fast and on demand and all this stuff, and it's like, no, you can't. You're not going to get a new belt, right away. You're going to have to work at that and train for it and slow things down. And it's like, it's one of the few things it seems like these days that just can't be, that more money or, just having some advantages can't get you there. No, you just need to work hard and you just stick with it and have the patience and the perseverance to get better. And I've learned that a lot in jiu-jitsu. I think I'm a pretty patient person, and I think I owe a lot of that to jiu-jitsu.
Yep. And not only is it a recipe for success in jiu-jitsu, it's a recipe for success in your life, in your job, in your marriage, everything you got. So, words to live by.
John Quincy Adams, dishing out the words to live by from the past. From the past,
John Quincy Adams. Hey, we've got an awesome article of the week this week. From Jiu-Jitsu Times, which seems like we get a lot from Jiu-Jitsu Times, but it just shows how great of a website that is. But this is an article from December 23rd of this year by Chris Zahar. but it's called What I Wish You Knew Before You Started Teaching, A Student's View. And he's just basically, it's really two instructors. It's basically written by a student, two instructors of basically really how to become a better instructor, based on, through the student's eyes, what students really want in an instructor. And, he lists some points here. But his very first one, he talks about is you need to build rapport with your students. And, that's huge. Basically, make sure you know them. They don't have to all be your best friends. Talk to them, be friendly with them. His last sentence in that little highlight there is, remember, friendliness equals likability, and likability will get you more students. It's the way to run a successful gym, to have people, if they like you, they're going to come in the door.
Yeah, I think about, it kind of mentions like before class, kind of just hanging out and just chatting with people is important versus the instructor that waits in the office and comes out right when it's time to teach class and starts class. Like, that's not as optimal as the instructor that you feel like you get to know and be friends with. And that's maybe some martial arts is different. Like, here comes the master, don't talk to him and be quiet when they're around. But Jiu-Jitsu, I think, is different, and we have a pretty laid back attitude and style of class. So I think that's going great for us. Another one that he has in this article is, there's nothing wrong with admitting when you're wrong, or admitting when you don't know something, I would say, is another way to say that. I get asked questions, not all the time, but sometimes students will ask me, how do I do this or that? And if I know, I try to share with them how I view that situation or what's going on. Don't always have the best answer, but I have what I would do, and it works for me. If I don't know, I'll tell them. I don't really play that type of game, or I'm not good at that technique. You should ask this person. And usually it's a brown belt, purple belt, or sometimes even a blue belt that does that technique or ends up in that position a lot. And they've been there more than I have, and they have more experience and just a better game from that point of view. Like, I don't play a whole lot of De La Riva. So if they start asking me De La Riva questions, I'll give a little bit. And I like to pass the De La Riva, but I don't play a lot from the bottom. So, shortly after, a few questions into it, or if they're already a decent De La Riva person, I'll be referring them to our buddy Matt Lowe or one of the other people that plays a lot of De La Riva. So, just kind of don't be afraid to not have all the answers. These people are going to roll with you anyway. And if they figure out that you're not any good at grappling, they'll figure that out regardless of whether you can crack out good answers for any situation or not. So.
Point 3, kids are miniature ATMs. Hey, it's true. The kids are going to be your bread and butter. As the author says, they have hours of free time, and their parents just want to get rid of them for an hour. But not only the kids, can be a pain, but the parents can be worse. But you've got to cater to the parents and the kids. It's your future. It's gonna, definitely help your gym out.
Yeah. Another point that he has on here is, don't confuse absence with indifference. And it's just basically understand that your students are busy people. And they show up that 1 or 2 days a week. They could have a huge love of jiu-jitsu, but they just have a busy life. They could have, 8 kids. They could be in school. They could have a job where they work, 60 hours a week or something like that. But just understand that your students are busy people, and just because they're not there all the time, they miss a week or 2, or they're hurt or something, doesn't mean that they don't care for jiu-jitsu. So just kind of give them the benefit of the doubt. If they keep showing up when they can, that's a great thing. And just don't expect everybody to show up 6 or 7 days a week and to train like you do. If you're the instructor who's like super excited about it, give them a little bit of slack and let them find their own passion for jiu-jitsu and let them work that into their life the way that without disrupting their entire life.
Yep. Hey, and to add a little thing onto that too, if they are gone for a while, don't hesitate to give them a phone call, send them a text, email. Hey, just want to know where you're at, or are you okay? And if you have some time, stop by the gym whenever you're free or get some time. And I can remember Byron and my first instructor, doing that to me when I was out at one point, and it just made me just feel special. It just made me realize that, my instructor's not out for money. He actually cares for me as a person. It wasn't pushing me to come back. It was more like, hey, are you okay? Just haven't heard from you. And I was like, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yep. Hey, I like the one here that says, just because we don't ask doesn't mean we don't know. And he goes off talking about one of his karate instructors, and basically would just go off on him. Basically if nobody would ask a question, he'd scream, "You guys know everything about karate? You guys don't need me. You might as well teach yourself." But man, this is a great little point here. Is a lot of times you don't know the right question to ask, and think about when you first started. I didn't know what questions to ask. I used to sometimes just be afraid to ask a question because I didn't want to sound silly or that I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, really, that's not the way to go. You really need to not be afraid to ask, but that's how I was. And sometimes it's up to the teacher to try to ask open-ended questions, try to get everybody involved, and we might not know what to ask, and maybe just try to talk about it in a different way, or try to I don't know. I guess that kind of goes back to the one we talked about earlier. If the teacher likes you, if you like the teacher, there's a good chance you're probably not going to be afraid to ask questions. So I think that probably could go into that one there too.
Yeah. It kind of gets into the idea that sometimes you don't even know what you don't know. Like if we invent a Gary guard and it's real weird and confusing.
Oh, what do you mean if we invent one? I already have.
Okay, we take Gary guard, which is heavy in the Kimuras, and it's got some mean guillotines in there. If we take that guard and we something, he's introducing this to new students and they don't even know what to ask. They don't even, they're absorbing what you told them, and they're so trying to learn what's new to them. Is the questions can be very hard to form sometimes, or even think of what do I do in this situation? They've never imagined themselves in that situation. They've never had their Kimura blocked, or something like that. But so not knowing what questions even exist to ask sometimes is an actual problem. So
yeah, it's a big problem.
I enjoyed the article. It's jujitsutimes.com, and we'll put a link to it in the show notes as always. And and I know we do have some bloggers and some website people out there. If you've got an article that you think would be interested in, absolutely send it our way. The bjjbrick@gmail.com, and we'll be happy to share it with the listeners and to give a little talk about it, just like we just did, and share what you wrote with our friends on the podcast.
Yeah, it's a good way to get your blog out there and get more people checking it out every week or however often you post on there. So we'd love to see some of our listeners' blogs or articles.
Yep. One more thing before we get to the interview. Like I mentioned, the rash guard is called Just Another Lion to Kill. It's a benefit rash guard for our friend Paul Morgan from Open Mat Radio. He's been fighting cancer, and when you do that, you rack up some pretty big medical bills. And so they've made this awesome rash guard. It's got an awesome lion on it, and it's got one on the back as well, and it's got all sponsors on the arms and of the sleeves, this long sleeve. And I ordered one just a little while ago, $37.99. It's a pre-order, so it hasn't shipped yet or anything like that. But I'll be posting mine as soon as I get it, and I hope to see you in one as well. And just a great way to support a great guy, Paul Morgan. I've messaged him several times about different things, and if I'm going to interview somebody and I need a little bit of help or prep work, he's a good guy to go to. He's always willing to help me out, and I've never actually met him, but we've had nice conversations about, you need to ask this person about this. This would be a great topic for the show. So he's helping me out kind of behind the scenes sometimes and giving me tips about interviewing and this and that. Just give me his time. And so if you like the show, if you like the BJJ Break podcast, I know you would like his show, Open Mat Radio. Paul does a great job. So go by to check it out. He also has another podcast called The Journey Podcast. So check that out as well. And we'll put links to those on the show notes. But most importantly, show him some support. Emails is okay, or hit him up online. But financial support is great for anybody in the situation. And you can do that by getting a rash guard. It's an awesome rash guard. And the proceeds go to help him out.
Yep, so definitely check that rash guard out. Like we said, when we get ours in, we'll post a picture of it so you can all see it. But definitely great. He's a great guy and also has a great podcast, pioneer in the sport. So definitely give him a hand.
All right. Well, Gary, I think it's time to learn about BJJ for Change with Chris Martin.
Let's roll the interview.
He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
His De La Riva guard was so strong that his opponent's mom fell over. He has never gotten mat burn, but sometimes you can find burn marks on the mat. Neil Armstrong watched him roll and said it was the most amazing experience of his life.
I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BJJ Brick podcast. Stay sweaty, my friends.
All right, my friends, I'm happy to bring Chris Martin to the BJJ Brick podcast. Chris is one of the founding members of the project BJJ for Change, and he's got some big goals, and he wants to help some people with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So, Chris, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And I love podcasts, so it's always cool to be on a podcast, obviously. So thank you.
So, Chris, you're a busy guy. You've got family, and you run some businesses, and then you started BJJ for Change. Tell us a little bit about well, actually, I want to get to know you a little bit. Tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, cool. So thank you. I consider myself a BJJ junkie. I started BJJ about 8 years ago. I was doing Muay Thai at a local gym in Milwaukee, and I did that for 2 years. At the time, I was heavier set, 240 pounds, 40-inch waist, so like your typical Wisconsin guy. Thought I was in shape, but definitely wasn't in shape. And was just looking for something different to do with my time. And I had just had my baby girl, my first baby girl. I was 28 at the time. I'm about to turn 38. I was just doing some boxing and some kickboxing, and then next thing you know, after 2 years of that, I had dropped from like 240 to 225, which was pretty solid.
Yeah.
I liked doing kickboxing and Muay Thai, like it was cool. And then one of my coaches said, hey, if you really want to take it to the next level, you're doing great. Why don't you try Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? And I don't know. It didn't look like it was for me. Like I would watch these guys, rolling, and I'd never wrestled or anything. So it didn't look appealing, but luckily I had a good, passionate coach that helped me, get through those first couple years. And then from there, I've just been hooked on jiu-jitsu, and it's totally transformed my life, not only from a health and wellness perspective. Like I was telling somebody the other day, I'm like, I was at 225, I thought I hit a goal. Then my next goal was, 215. Well, I smashed that goal. Then it was 205. Then it was 195. Then it was 195. And it wasn't even goals. It was just, the lifestyle was changing my body. And now what I could do, how I think, how I operate my businesses, how I treat the people around me, how I, everything is just jiu-jitsu. Like, so I always say to people, it sounds so cliche. Everybody's like, jiu-jitsu changes lives. Well, yeah, it really does. I know this for sure because it changed my life. So jiu-jitsu is just something that it's kind of like my medicine. As long as I have it, I'm good. I'm I can deal with anything that comes at me in life. I don't know what I would do without it. So it obviously only makes sense then for me, to, mix my business, with my passion. And then from a philanthropic standpoint, I'm looking at it from, how do I give back to the community? And, if I'm going to spend time, because I see right now, I work with some social, I'm on a committee of a couple social projects, and they're dealing with world changed from a perspective of gun violence and, you know, what's going on in the school systems and fixing the world from the ground up through the kids and the systems. And to me, the solution is just so easy. It's jiu-jitsu. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. But just to get back to where BJJ for Change came together was BJJ for Change. I have a friend of mine who I went to school with at Marquette. It's a local school in Milwaukee College. And he went to film school after we graduated from Marquette. And I went into employee benefits where I still make a living. And he produced a couple Emmy award-winning films, and he's a documentary filmmaker. And so we had been working on a number of, you know, just small projects together, and I'm so passionate about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm like, you know, his documentaries are mostly about, you know, do good type situations. So for example, they did a documentary where a group of travelers went into an orphanage, and in the orphanage they worked with kids during that time. They filmed the documentary, and then the proceeds from that film went to the kids in the orphanage. And it was one of those things where it's like they went out to help the kids in the orphanage live a better, or get better with, you know, financial support and you know, just moral support. But it was actually them going out there and doing that work is what changed their lives. So the kids ended up changing their lives when they were there, and they were supposed to be changing the kids' lives.
Yeah.
And they shot a documentary. They raised over $200,000 for those kids. And, you know, for me, there's two things missing in jiu-jitsu. I think we're missing, number one, a general sense of awareness for the general public. I'm speaking, you know, in America, not many people know what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is. Still, you know, so even with the rise of the UFC, you know, people come into our gym in Milwaukee, you know, looking for Taekwondo or karate or something like that. They don't even know what Jiu-Jitsu is, but they throw their kids in, and it works. And I've already, you know, you see transformations in these kids at such a young age. But anyways, I was speaking to Amar Singh Khalik is his name, and he owns Never Ending Light Film company, and they're the ones that have done a couple Emmy award-winning, like I said, films, documentaries. But then they also recently they have a film called Serious, and that's on Netflix, and they had a lot of success with that. So, you know, I was pushing him. I'm like, man, nothing exists really from like a full feature documentary on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Like, there's a lot of small documentaries, like Choke is like one of the first documentaries that I saw with Quincy. You know, that changed my life and the way I looked at things. But that was filmed so long ago, and the sport's changed so much since then. So number one, I said we need a documentary on jiu-jitsu. But number two, when I started to hear about these other social projects and how there's been money raised for kids with those social projects, I'm like, man, how can we combine this together and do a documentary and then also, you know, give back to the kids? So the concept was kind of driven from, we need a documentary for jiu-jitsu just to bring better general awareness to the general public on what jiu-jitsu is, because people will watch it on Netflix. You know, they might watch it, you know, even if they don't know what it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, you know, people who love jiu-jitsu, and if it's a good documentary, they're going to share it with, you know, their girlfriend or, you know, their parents or their brothers or sisters, you know. So it's a great way to get the word out, because people like to watch things these days. Nobody wants to read anymore. Everybody just wants to watch movies. You know, I just want to sit around and watch jiu-jitsu match today. I'm actually watching right now as we speak the Galvao Abraham Marte in the 2013 Worlds. That was a pretty cool match. Marte, you'll learn more about him. I know he's jumping on one of your podcasts.
Yeah, next week, I think.
Yeah, and he's involved in the project. So, but anyways, so what we wanted to do was how do we raise money for kids? And Amar and his group have already done these kind of what we call travel documentaries. They're just little mini travel documentaries. They follow a crew of people in its special niche, and ours would be jiu-jitsu, and they follow them to these camps or these, social projects, and they film the whole experience. And then the money from, if there is any money from the film, it'll go back to the kids. Otherwise, the ticket sales from the event are what's driving the revenue to the kids. And then at the event, there's all the other ways that you raise money for kids. Like when you're doing this type of work or for your project, in my case, it's kids. But there's many different ways that you can raise money. You just have to go out there and do it. But when you go out there and do it to raise money, you have to talk to people. They're going to ask you for marketing pieces, or they're going to ask you for brochures or literature, or in many cases they're going to say, we want to know where this money is going. And so having the documentary brings the awareness to the problem and the issues, which is step one. Step one, you got to bring awareness to the issues. Otherwise, we're just living here in America, running the day-to-day operations, and there's things going on in other countries that we're not even aware of right now. I mean, right now, since I've started this project, I can't tell you how many people have jumped out, to bring awareness to their organization because they heard of BJJ for Change and they need help and support. And the stories that I hear, it's like, holy smokes. So number one, we need awareness. And then number two, so BJJ for Change, in summary, what is turned, because we've evolved this project a couple different times. Just like any good jiu-jitsu move, you just have to keep tweaking it and tweaking it and tweaking it until the model's right. So that was our first idea when we went to the coaches who are already involved in this project. And each day that list of superstar coaches is growing because more coaches hear about this project and they want to be involved. How do I get involved? Or they have a gym that needs help, wants to get involved. So we'll talk more about that in a moment. So when we went to the coaches originally, it was, here's what we're going to do. We're going to shoot this documentary. We're going to bring awareness to our cause, which is jiu-jitsu and also world poverty and just general need for, I can go down a list of why jiu-jitsu is important in children's lives, especially ones that don't have other outlets like proper education, healthy home life, etc. Yeah. This is an outlet for them. I've heard stories. My coaches have told me stories from and showed me pictures and introduced me to black belts who in Brazil have come from these, what I've been told is the favelas. And these kids come up, they have a horrible life. And some of them make the choice to change their life through Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And there are coaches and there are gyms all over Brazil that are coming out of their own pockets and supporting these kids, giving them a place to live, giving them a place to eat, giving them a place to train, and turning them into world champions, and then helping them get coaching opportunities so that they can live a better life. But it costs money. It costs time, and a lot of these guys who are doing this in these social projects, these gym owners, they don't have the money, they don't have the time, they don't have the resources. So the thought process was, when we went to the coaches, is let's go back to Brazil. It's time to give back, and we're going to have this travel trip. It's going to be a superstar seminar, and the coaches who have committed to the project, Braulio Estima, Robert Drysdale, Penny Thomas, Clark Gracie, and Holes Gracie, they all chose a specific dojo that they wanted to work with when they go back to Brazil. And we were going to bring them all at the same time, and we were going to bring a full camera crew to film the whole 10-day venture and we were going to go to each one of the schools. So, for example, Robert Drysdale said, hey, I want to go to visit Telede, who's in Brazil. I haven't been there for quite some time. And that would be a good plot for the documentary. And Master Toko, Clark Gracie, was going to go take us back to see. So we were all going to be able to go to these different projects, is what they're called in Brazil. So social projects, you know, gyms, whatever, gyms for kids. They're called projects in Brazil.
Okay.
And, yeah. So when I refer to projects, that's what we're talking about. Picture dojos and kids training jiu-jitsu and, you know, gis ripped apart, you know, it just, you know, they're just trying to train, you know, and they're doing the best that they can.
Yeah.
So, everybody was going to chose a project, and each camping group was going to be able to work directly with one of these coaches, and then they were going to go into the favelas. We were going to do the filming, and then the proceeds from the documentary were going to go back to the kids, back to those gyms, and also to continue to drive awareness to this organization, and provide more camps and more opportunities for us to go out and see these kids on an annual basis. So that's where BJJ for Change, that was the original. But what happened was, as we evaluated the model, we realized something as a team. We said, first of all, we need to make sure that our tickets are affordable, because what we were trying to do is knock out a Netflix documentary over a 10-day period. And when you do that, you have to have a big film crew, and you have a lot of people going out. You have a lot of people involved. You know, the trip in February that we had originally planned was going to have over 60 people. So that's a lot of people to track and travel all to different areas over a short period of time. So we went out. We still pitched it. Everybody loved the concept. From a documentary standpoint, the superstar coaches love the project because, again, it brings that piece of awareness.
Yeah.
They also like the fact, obviously, that the proceeds are helping the kids. So that's a win-win right there. From the camper standpoint, guys like you and I that would go on this trip, where is it going to benefit us is not only are we learning, like, you know, really high-end coaches from their seminars, learning from them and hanging out. Like, that's going to be really cool. That's just the jiu-jitsu part. But from a branding standpoint, so to be able to have a documentary that you're featured in, so that you can go to a school district and say, hey, you know, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You know, this is something that I was featured in, and use it for your own personal marketing and branding. That in itself is kind of the icing on the cake of what differentiates this from other just traditional. This isn't just a travel camp. It's a travel camp. It's a full seminar. It's also a social project where you will be putting in some work. You will be training with kids. Money goes back. So part of your ticket sale and part of the money that you spend on these travel trips goes back to the kids. So you're supporting a good cause. And then for you personally, you have actual footage that you can use to brand yourself. So with the ticket sales of this documentary, we also have opportunities for you to screen this documentary once it's finalized in your own city. And when you do that, it's you can use this for a fundraiser. So you can then take what we've done over the next year, take this documentary, and we're going to help you and assist you in going out to your community or your business network, filming or screening this documentary in the cities, and being able to tell your story, who you are, what you do, what you believe in, and then just ask your network to support you. And then if people want to then become part of this, where they're constantly traveling to see the kids, rolling with high level people, and then giving back through their networks to a good cause through Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they're part of the BJJ for Change movement. So it's kind of like like Abraham Marte says, it's like a snowball effect. You have this hub of organization that's bringing all these different social projects together, and then it just becomes awareness. And once you have the general awareness, it becomes a snowball effect. So that's how BJJ for Change came about. But like I said, just like any good jiu-jitsu move, you have to make adjustments as obstacles arise. So, and this wasn't even a big obstacle, but we were featured on a podcast with Daniel Acevedo, and he introduced our project. And then the week following our project, or our podcast, a group from the Dominican Republic jumped on, and it was Abraham Marte and Caleb Kalista.
Yeah.
They roll with Cyborg, and they were having they came on. They said, "Hey, great podcast. Love what BJJ for Change is doing. We're doing the same thing. It's called Fighting for a Dream, and it's going to be." And now they weren't doing a documentary.
Yeah,
it was just a camp, and they were going to also provide funding to the kids. But they found this awesome resort in the Dominican Republic, an all-inclusive resort. So you're basically training outside, eating all you can eat, whatever, sushi, steak, all day long, for 4 days. And they had Cyborg. So it was going to be Cyborg and Marte 4 days. And when you looked at the ticket cost of our superstar, lineup in 10 days versus, their mini camp, it was a pretty big difference. And at the same time, the camps were being hosted at the exact same time. So it was, the BJJ podcast, the BJJ show.
Yeah.
And Caesar said, man, I hope these guys can all just come together and work together, because it's really the same cause. And so we got in touch with each other and, learned more about each other's projects. And we're like, man, we're doing the exact same thing. And I spoke to Amar. I'm like, is there any reason that we can't do this thing on a global level and not just focus on Brazil, but make this documentary in the Dominican Republic, in Brazil, in South Africa? I've had people reach out to me from Abu Dhabi, from Palestine, and now we have talks about Russia. So now we've changed this whole business plan to say this: let's get more people involved. I said to Mart, I'm like, do we have the opportunity to shoot this over the next year instead of just shooting it over a 10-day period? And he said, yes, not only can we do that,
yeah,
he said it's also a lot more cost effective, because we don't have to send out 5, 6, 7 people on a camera crew shoot. We don't have to pay that. We can send one person down per travel trip to film a more intimate setting with a smaller group of people and specific coaches. So in this case, what we decided to do, we talked to all the coaches, and they're all very supportive of the project. They want it done right, and they want it done high quality. So when we initially pitched this to these coaches and let them know, hey, we've got this other project going on at the same time, why don't we focus on helping promote them and working together, feature them in the documentary, get them part of this travel camp, and then from there, what we'll do is we'll just, instead of doing this all in a 10-day shoot, I'm going to work with each one of the coaches and organize a time and a place that they can have their own mini camps, and then we'll come out, we'll still shoot, and that'll give the campers a better experience, because we can spend more time with the kids. We can spend more time at each project through the whole week instead of just one day. Get to know more of the kids, of the projects, And then from a affordability standpoint, it provides a more affordable ticket for the camper. And so now we're going to shoot this documentary over the course of the next year. And like I said, Dominican Republic is going to be the first stop. Cyborg, Abraham Marte, and most recently, we just got word that Leandro Lowe is also going to be attending the seminar.
Nice.
And he's actually, he reached out to Abraham and said, man, this is great. And that's just so everybody's aware, that is the general consensus from most of the BJJ high level guys like Lowe and Cyborg and Drysdale and Braulio. Like, they love the idea because nothing like this really exists right now. And there's a huge need for it. They see opportunity in it. And they're saying, hey, whatever we can do to help. And so now, like I said, I've had people reach out to me. There's a group in Palestine, and there's refugee kids who their families have been blown up, and they're just in these little refugee camps. And there's a group of people out there who are trying to bring jiu-jitsu to these kids so that they can use it as a therapy, as an outlet. So BJJ for Change has gone from now a 10-day travel camp, super duper documentary shoot, to something I think a lot more cool, and that was going to be in Brazil.
Yeah.
Just to something that's going to be now more global.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, jiu-jitsu is a total global sport. It's growing. I mean, they're doing really cool stuff in Abu Dhabi. You know, I don't know if you're aware, like, all the kids like have to, you know, do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's my goal for the United States. And I actually, sadly, I'm really passionate about, you know, the kids, because I have 2 daughters. So number one, just from a general self-defense, they need to know how to protect themselves. From a lifestyle, I don't know a better sport than Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for my daughters just to be around. Because of the camaraderie, the team building, but also the personal accountability, personal growth that you get from practicing, winning, losing. Nothing's better than Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And now there is a lot of stuff going on in the news. You know, I'm hearing, you know, active shooting drills in elementary schools now, where we used to do tornado drills. Now they're doing active shooter drills. And somebody was on Facebook and mentioned something about arming the teachers. You know, give the teachers guns then. And the issue with that is, you know, I've got a 62-year-old mother who I can assure you is not ready to pull out a gun. She's never even touched a gun. And she doesn't need that stress or responsibility. Obviously, you could say, you know, you could put a cop in each school building, and that's a possibility too. But then, you know, in my mind, I say, hey, listen, you know, somebody mentioned, you know, when you train the masses, then the masses can take care of those situations as a group because everybody's trained. It's not just one guy in the room who does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But if we have the kids, think about it, if we have the kids all doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the school districts because it's just part of their curriculum, and then something like this was to happen, all the kids know how to work together to subdue and mitigate the risk. And not only that, you're also fighting an obesity epidemic that Jiu-Jitsu can solve. You're fighting a video game epidemic that Jiu-Jitsu can solve. And just a general, you know, I just named 3 things. I didn't even talk about.
The school shootings are terrible and they're tragic. I'd be willing to bet that when I'm going to die, it'll probably be a heart condition or cancer. Like, I'm not probably going to get shot and killed. And in like this epidemic, that's how most people are ultimately, like, obesity, you know, heart disease. Unhealthy lifestyles, cancer. Like, if we could get the kids interested in understanding how to take care of their bodies from the beginning and have a good time doing it, that's a big part of it that I'm passionate about, is that they enjoy it. You're setting up for a lifetime of a healthier lifestyle and living. I got some questions for you. There's a lot going on here. It sounds like if I go to the seminar or one of these camps, my money will go towards the school that it's at. Is that correct? Or the area or the region?
Let's just use Dominican Republic for example.
Okay.
So you're going to be paying for an event. So you're coming to Dominican Republic, all inclusive resort, all you can eat, all you can train. So obviously part of the ticket costs go to the cost of having that event. But then every time that we go to one of these resorts, and every time we have, or I should say projects, every time we have one of these trips, 14% of everything goes directly back to the kids. So on a 30-person event, each time you go to Dominican Republic, we're going to put another $10,000 to $15,000 per trip back into the school, back into that particular project. So if you're doing this 2, 3, 4 times a year, that's $30,000, $40,000, $60,000 that's going to that particular school and project. At the same time, that's just for the continuous ongoing travel camps moving forward. But the initial documentary, there's also going to be ways to generate additional revenue from that documentary. And then from that documentary, those proceeds, we also use 14%. Those proceeds go back to 14% goes back to the kids as well. So what this does is it creates a continuous revenue stream. We're supporting jiu-jitsu, and then jiu-jitsu is supporting these projects. And if we can continue to do this, not just in 2016, but 2017, 18, 19, and ongoing, and make this a yearly event, and that's really what the intentions are. You know, for myself personally, I will be going back to these projects that I visit, you know, a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, probably to do the same camp. Whether or not we are shooting a documentary at that time doesn't make a difference. I'll go back just to see the progress that they've made since I've been there, because you really will be working with the kids and touching some lives. You will be invested in these programs and projects. So that's how we're going to drive the revenue, and that's going to continuously bring that cash flow to the kids. But then also what we're going to be doing is work, I don't know if I mentioned it on air or not, but BJJ for Change then is going to continuously work with the leaders and the mentors of these projects to say, hey, who do you have that we can help mentor and begin a career with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? So for example, my gym I'm a partner with a franchise and Nova Gyms, and they're in Milwaukee, and they are looking to expand. And when they expand, obviously, they look for who's going to staff it. And like Abraham Marte is a great example. He's already successfully done this, where he's taken kids up, he's mentored them, he's taught them how to be good coaches, and now he's sending these kids to, for example, in this case, a school in Ohio, that will be their black belt coach, that school in Ohio. So they're fortunate to get a high level dude. That high level jiu-jitsu practitioner is making a living doing what they love, and it's a win-win for everybody. So we're trying to create more of those opportunities, and we'll work with each one of these organizations that we touch and continuously put those people on the front path of, you know, getting ahead. Like people say, you know, it's not just, you don't need to be, we're not doing this just to make these kids world champions. They can be coaches, they can be gi manufacturers, they can be tournament consultants. I mean, the list goes on. They can make t-shirts and do websites, and, you know, that's where our goal is, to focus on helping these kids make a living through Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah,
that's big. I think that some of the kids will obviously do that. They'll be able to make a living through jiu-jitsu, but a lot of kids will take the things that they've learned on jiu-jitsu, the values of hard work, the value that they've made of making their new friends, and the teamwork that they've learned about, and just the overall value of themselves. And no matter what they do, whether that's not in the jiu-jitsu industry or not, whether they could be, insurance person or the government worker, whatever, that this makes the type of change that really helps somebody, especially in an area that's struggling, understand how that they have value to themselves, that they need to value the hard work, and that their effort is rewarded and will give them results.
Yeah, and it's funny that it's hard to understand that unless you do jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu, like, why do I love it so much, I think, is because when the hard work pays off and you hit that move, or you roll with that person that you hadn't rolled with in a year, and you just toy them, it's that feeling. It's like, holy cow, this works. And it's like all that suffering and that headache and that pain for the last year, it's finally paying off. And sometimes you get that feeling, and that's where Clark Gracie says that jiu-jitsu's therapy for kids, not only just the jiu-jitsu itself, but also the tournaments, going out, winning and losing the tournaments. And it's true, in the short period of time that our school, our coach took 7 kids out to a local tournament, all 7 medaled, which was awesome. I was really proud.
Wow.
Yeah, that was really cool. It was, but I was there coaching on the sideline, and I had to watch kids go on the mat, lose their first match, leave the match crying, and then you have to go to the side and you have to build these kids back up and tell them to get their butts back out there, because they got to put on the gi, and that's where they're going to be comfortable. And you tell them this, and then they're looking at you, but then they go out and they win, and then they medal in the gi, and it's like, oh man. I mean, that type of confidence building, it's priceless. Like, that is therapy. We just taught a kid that you lost, but you get your ass back out there and you try it again, and you might win. And that's life, because I tell everybody who comes into the gym, everybody, hey, I want to be successful. I want to be successful. I want to be successful. I'm like, all you got to do is show up. Like, that's really it. Success will follow, but 90% of success is just showing up. And, teaching these kids that, 90% of, success is just getting back on the mat after a victory or a loss. That's priceless. These kids are fragile, number one, and they're broken. And guess what? So are adults. They're fragile and they're broken. And you have to look to, slowly build them back up and give them the confidence. And I've heard so many high level people talk about jiu-jitsu, like, jiu-jitsu, we're just selling confidence. That's all it is. And that makes a hell of a lot of sense. And you know what? It's worth I've spent so much money on jiu-jitsu. And I'm not talking about gis. I'm talking about, out of pocket, making sure that I get the best training from the best people. And really not having an issue paying that price, because the investment in itself, it's priceless. Like, you can't buy confidence, but you can in jiu-jitsu if you just show up. You can achieve it.
Yeah.
So, if that's embedded into the kids, that's why it's so important. My daughters, the daughters get their confidence from their dad, and the only way that I know how to show these kids confidence is to take them with me to the gym. Because that's where I get my confidence from. I didn't have what I have, the confidence that I have now versus before jiu-jitsu. It's not even close. So, yeah, I'm super passionate about it. When you have your own kids, and mine are 9 and 6, it just changes. It changes your life. Your focus really starts to become the next generation. And to me, as a parent, you're worried about, first of all, you want a good life for your child, and you can't imagine what other children who are suffering, what it's like for them and their families. So, if the world is, America and the world is only as good as everybody healthy, everybody happy. And unfortunately it's not like that, but to me, this is that opportunity to say, hey, let's step back and not, like Abraham said in one of his podcasts, he's like, man, nobody cares who's on the the podium for the IBJJ gold medal this weekend, because next weekend it's going to be different. Next year it's going to be different and different. But, it's, to spend a little bit of time focusing on the core, which is, like you said, Byron, it's the health, it's the happiness.
Yeah.
It's the confidence building, to step back and take a look at that and focus our energies on the next generation, because that's the world we live in today. That's the next generation. So
look at you. Like, people tell you they want to be successful at jiu-jitsu, and even if you had never won a match in your life, you lost a bunch of weight with martial arts, and it's hard to look at that and say, well, I failed. You have health. You're a healthier person than you were when you started. That's a great thing, and that's like a guarantee. You sign up, it comes with the class. There's no way you're gonna miss out on that benefit of jiu-jitsu.
That's it. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to just kind of peel back to the curtain a little bit behind BJJ for Change and learn about the organization. The Never Ending Light Productions. That's a big, nice. Studio and production company there. How are they going to get paid? How are the coaches getting paid? And kind of a little bit behind the scenes of how stuff is working with BJJ for Change.
Yeah, so here's the way it's going to shake out. So each time we have one of these mini camps, the coaches, we continue to pay the coaches just like they get. It's actually they do it discounted, because like most of these guys, if you think about it, like if I said, we're going to do a Braulio or a Drysdale, seminar, or a Clark Gracie seminar, it's, if I was to bring one of these guys to Milwaukee or Chicago or wherever, like my guess is, it's like $3,000 to $5,000 for one of these guys for a day. Like I had Ludwig out to Milwaukee, and I think he was like $4,000, plus plane tickets for a 2-hour seminar in Milwaukee, which was a little bit astronomical, but that's what these guys are charging. So, and you can't hate on them, because this is how they make their life. Like,
absolutely.
You get it. Like this is their lifeline. So, but most of these, not most of them, all of them are doing these things on super discounted. If they're charging $5,000 a day, most of these guys are doing this for either just a couple $1,000s and some pocket change, just to, pay. We obviously pay all their accommodations. You pay for their plane tickets, because we're not asking them to come out of pocket on it. Part of that is invested in the ticket sales. But most of these guys are taking, it's almost like they're taking the week off for the amount of money they're doing.
Yeah.
It's like Leonardo Lowe, is basically, well, he is doing it for nothing. Like he's just so excited about the project. He's not even interested in taking any type of compensation, so.
That's great.
Yeah,
but he's in a situation where he could do that. I don't know for sure what his personal situation is, but if he had his car is going to get towed tomorrow, he probably needs to. Right. But not everybody could do that.
And we're not trying to. That's exactly right. Like this thing is only going to be successful if we can continue to keep it sustainable.
Yeah.
And everybody working for free, that'll last for a couple. For a couple months, but then everybody's gonna go back to their normal lives.
Yeah.
And that's our fear. As far as Never Ending Light, from a production standpoint, they're gonna take their production costs out of it, and then they're gonna work with us to get this thing sold, and then that's gonna generate additional revenue.
Okay.
And keep this thing alive and going. And there's legal costs to doing these things. To keeping a film alive, there's costs. That's not my specialty. I leave that to those guys. But the key is to keep this thing moving and going, because without funding, because that's what this is. I mean, basically it's almost like we're asking, it's like a private equity venture where we're just asking for support from the BJJ community. Cause like we're not going to big companies and asking for money. Like we're just saying, hey, come out, travel, train. You're going to learn some kick-ass shit. We're going to get you some really cool footage that you can use for your websites. And like from a media company perspective, if people like, for example, you know, you want to film your 5 moves of the day for you own a school. You got a email marketing list. You want to do your 5 moves of the day, to blast off to your 900 person, you know, marketing list. Well, you know, let's go down to the Dominican Republic and we'll get you and Cyborg to do it together. And then there you are, boom, done. And these coaches are totally down for that. Like however ways that we can drive additional revenue to the kids, they're down. Cool. So that's another reason that, you know, working with Never Ending Light, they're going to be able to add more value services that we all need. We all need media. We all need, you know, even if we're, you know, most of the people who I've spoken with so far are trying to make some type of life out of BJJ for themselves, who are coming on these trips. So for example, a gentleman who works, you know, with kids as well, and he's looking to do, therapy through jiu-jitsu. And I've spoken to a couple of different, gi manufacturers, you know, who want to get their name out. And so a lot of people and a lot of coaches who just own schools are looking to come out to do these trips. So even people like that, you know, those are opportunities for media services, that we're going to be able to help them with. And then in addition, again, 14% of the sales from that, after the production goes to the kids again. So it's just different. There's unlimited ways you can drive revenue, and working with Never Ending Light, they've already had the track record of doing that for these organizations. Yeah. So it's a synergistic relationship. Like it's one of those weird things where it's like, you know, everything's coming together. You know, you hear the stars align or the universe is all working out. Well, sometimes that does happen. And you just kind of got to run with it. And in this situation, that's what it's been. You know, you talk about, you know, you mentioned before we were talking about the kids and like, you know, chances are, you know, we're not going to get shot and, you know, we'll get cancer or a heart attack or something like that. So it's funny. Those two things are very close to me because as an insurance professional, I'm always dealing with risk mitigation. So I'll sell cancer policies and heart attack policies because people will buy that because it's a risk. But there also is the risk that we could get shot, and you might not think it's high, but Amar, the reason he's back to Wisconsin from Los Angeles was because his father was shot in a mass temple shooting in Oak Creek, Wisconsin a few years ago. So he lost his dad, and that's what brought him back. So it's kind of like, you know, everything kind of comes together. You know, the reason he's back is so we can get this project off the ground. This is something I've been thinking about doing for, you know, 3-4 years. I know, you know, a lot of the coaches, everybody I've spoken with so far as well, all the coaches say the same thing. This is something I've been looking to do for 3-4 years. So now it's all the stars are aligning. Everybody's supportive. Now it's time to make this thing happen, and all the right players are in play right now. So, you know, people can help. First of all, go to the site. We're going to be rebranding it over the next couple weeks here because, like I said, the model has changed. And now instead of one camp, we're going to be doing a number of mini camps. So we're going to be starting to sell tickets for this event. It'll be by the time, right around Christmas. So by now, you can jump on to bjjforchange.org.
Yeah.
And all the details are going to be there. If you have questions, if you need special arrangements, whatever it is, if you want to buy your ticket, you can just go to bjjforchange.com, enter your information in, you know, hit submit, you know, email, phone number, message, or just purchase the ticket directly from the site. And I can assure you that it's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to meet a lot of cool people. It's going to keep us all connected, and we're going to continue to do good things. And this first camp, like I said, the February 18th to the 21st of 2016 is going to be Dominican Republic. And I'll let Abraham Marte come on and tell you guys more about how awesome that resort's going to be. But then after that, stay tuned, stay on our email list, because like I said, now we're talking about going to Russia, South Africa. We are definitely going to Brazil. We just have to come up with the exact date and give the details of who's going to be attending that seminar. So now you're going to be able to spend more time with these coaches on a more intimate level. You're going to be featured in this documentary that's going to be shown on Netflix. Like I said, Never Ending Light, they have a track record of success with, number one, getting movies up into the Netflix arena, crowdfunding those movies. They've raised over $1.5 million for Sirius, the documentary. And then also a great track record of, putting together these travel camps and sending money back to the orphanages and the kids that they've already done work with. So now we're just coming together as a community. We're all going to be part of something bigger, and it's just going to open up more relationships for all of us to work together to do what we love, make this world a better place, help the next generation, not only here in America, but globally, make a better world through Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Because again, you have anybody, I could talk your ear off for hours. You can tell already, I'm sure. But I can tell you a million different reasons why everybody should do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's my thought. And but I don't need to do that on this podcast, because most likely all the listeners, they feel that way too.
Yeah.
So that's why, we're just asking, not just me, it's Cyborg, it's Lowe, it's Marte, it's Drysdale, it's Estima, it's Gracie, it's everybody saying, what guys, let's do it. Let's put all, and the other thing cool about this whole project is like everybody's putting all their BS aside.
Good.
The whole association, they're and who's this and who's, nobody cares about that. They're like, you know what, man, we're past that. And that's what it seems like. They are past it. I really believe that, we're moving from a fear-based mindset to, a more abundance and sharing mindset. In Brazil back in the day, these guys used to fight at the Mundials once a year. So these, you wouldn't let somebody in from another association to come learn your moves. So that's you would hoard your moves. So that's kind of that old school mentality, and it's slowly starting to break. Because it's a new world right now that we live in with the internet and sharing and
yeah.
I think go ahead.
It's like the old thought was everybody wants a piece of the pie, but we're making the pie so much bigger. I mean, there's no reason the pie can't be huge, and everybody gets as much pie as they can handle.
Oh, that's right. There's more than enough business out there for everybody. Jiu-jitsu schools.
And what a great cause. I think, look at my life. I started jiu-jitsu in my early 20s, and when I was a kid, I grew up. I had loving parents. I lived in a pretty nice place here in the United States, and I had pretty good. And I look what jiu-jitsu has done for me. It's done a lot. I can imagine starting as a child. I would have loved to have started as a child, and how that would have, if I would have had a tougher home life or had a tougher city to live in, how much that would have helped me. It's just amazing what this could do for people and for kids, and the amount of change that this could actually create in the world.
Yeah, so we like I believe we need that first step is the awareness. I'm looking to use this final video as a tool to get in front of more administrators here in the United States and put together programs for after school programs for kids. Because right now, a lot of these kids are just sitting around after school and it's just trouble. But, if we can figure out ways, like you said, it's all about healthy lifestyle, which you learn through jiu-jitsu and body movement and mechanics and functional movement. We can teach that, and that's easy. And there's so many people ready to teach that. There's so many schools throughout the United States. So I plan to use this documentary for myself personally to talk to administrators and say, hey, this is what we can do. This is why we think it changes lives. Here's a great documentary to watch. And they'll watch it. And that's that's going to add credibility to our cause, because it's everybody's cause. And then from there, I'm hoping that you guys can also use that piece, and as you work in your communities, because jiu-jitsu people are pretty cool. Like, everybody, for the most part, is cool people. Their egos have been crushed a million times, so they can deal with interpersonal communications on a different basis than just your average person. And I think together as a group we're stronger, and however we can work together to make the world a better place. Because like I said, if everybody does jiu-jitsu, everybody's going to be a lot cooler. So makes sense.
Absolutely. Add a few cool points to the entire world. That'd be nice. Chris, I know I'm keeping you past our time here. The best place to go, BJJ for the number, change.org. .org
or .com.
Okay, both are there. And then get your name and email address on the list. That way you're updated about any changes or anything that might be going on that you'd like to attend. Is that probably the best way to do things?
Yeah, absolutely. You just want to be on this list because a lot of cool stuff is going to be popping up. And the only way that I can notify you is to email you back with our, monthly or weekly newsletter. We have a Facebook page as well, BJJ for Change. Like us on Facebook. We have a Twitter account too, but Facebook and our website is the two best. And like I said, a lot of really cool seminars coming up, a lot of cool opportunities to travel. From a media perspective, we're going to be really pumping awareness through Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and doing the best that we can to promote this in a positive way. So any suggestions or any groups out there who want to work with us to promote their cause, we're definitely open to that, and excited to be a part of something bigger that, again, let's all work together and make this world a better place. Let's use jiu-jitsu to do it.
All right. Sounds great. And appreciate you sharing your mission here, your goals that you have with BJJ for Change, and happy to help get the word out. And it's all for good causes. It's all to grow jiu-jitsu. It's all to help people, kids, but ultimately people, when they grow up and they become adults, you want them to have what you've gotten off the mat as well. So,
I think it's a simple formula, and like I said, I think the world becomes a better place. You have less bullying, you have just more general awareness, discipline, respect, and I just don't think you can get that from any other martial art. So you'll have to come tell me otherwise. But I love jiu-jitsu. I love her so much, and if I can share her with the world, I certainly will.
All right. Well, thank you for that, and it's been a pleasure talking with you, Chris. And thanks for hopping on here with me.
Yeah, let's roll soon for sure.
Well, hey, that was an awesome interview there with Chris Martin for BJJ for Change. Definitely glad he took some time out of his day to talk to us, but. It's just such a great organization doing great things, and definitely going to make this world a better place.
I think about all the things that Jiu-Jitsu does to help people out. And these kids who are like in tough situations, they're going to learn the value of hard work, the value of friendship, and having a support network. And it's not all just about you. The value of knowledge, like Jiu-Jitsu teaches that a lot. It's not. Studying and learning about something, you can get better at it. That's a big one. The value of skill and ultimately the value of themselves. It helps give kids understand that they are important, and if they can get better at things, and that they are, to value themselves. And I think that Jiu-Jitsu does that for any kid who does it. And so, really excited about BJJ for Change, helping kids who need help. So, next week we have Abraham Arte. He is a black belt from the Dominican Republic. He has medaled. He's the first black belt out of Dominican Republic to medal at Worlds as in the black belt division, and he's also he's won all the brown and below at Worlds as well. So it's amazing that you could grow up in a place that's not known for jiu-jitsu like that and do so well. And we'll get into that a little bit in the interview next week. But he is doing a seminar or a camp, is a better way to say it, for BJJ for Change, and they're going to help raise money for the kids locally there in the Dominican Republic. So that's just awesome, and you'll learn more about that and an opportunity to travel out there and see the beautiful countryside and the jiu-jitsu and the resort that they're going to have, and a lot of cool stuff and interesting conversation with him. So that's next week. More BJJ for Change, and it'll be more from an athlete's point of view.
Yeah, and that's the one thing. We're talking about what jiu-jitsu does for kids and everything, but the one thing I've noticed about jiu-jitsu is, man, there's a lot of great people in it. Here we are talking about for BJJ for Change, people donating their time, donating their money, helping kids out. Then you got Abraham Marte giving his time, for seminar or for camps, I guess. And it just seems like that just happens all the time. Just like we were talking about, the rashguard for Open Mat Radio, same thing. It's a lot of great people in jiu-jitsu. It seems like everybody gives back, and it just makes me, happy and proud to be involved in this sport. So, so definitely check out next week's show. It's going to be awesome. And, hey, if you want to get more of BJJ Brick, you can definitely check us out on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on, Twitter, we're on Instagram. So definitely, check us out on all the different, venues there.
And Gary, we have a website too. Can you believe that?
Website, bjjbrick.com. Yeah, so big time.
if you go on there, I'm trying to do an article a month, and I barely got this one in this month of December. I wrote a little article about my trip in Burma and Thailand, where I did a little jiu-jitsu, and I want to give you a little teaser here. Somebody tried to steal my wallet from me, so how did that go down? You'll find out on the website.
Yep, and speaking of that too, normally I have a ebook that comes out every week that
That's
never
true.
gets. But this week Byron was coming out with it. I don't know if he knows about it yet.
No, I don't know about this one. I've been thinking about doing a different one because I have one that I really want to do, but I don't think it's the one you're thinking.
Yeah, and he's just coming out with one. It's like how grilled cheese sandwiches and stopping pickpockets are one and the same. And Byron, if you'd like to talk a little bit about your audiobook coming out.
Okay, Gary, this is true. They are basically the same thing. Making a grilled cheese sandwich and stopping the pickpocket, which I have done both of these things.
He has.
So, stopping the pickpocket, it was basically about being aware of the situation at hand and being attuned to the right side of my butt. And and knowing that something was going on back there. That's a big deal. That's not quite the same as making a grilled cheese sandwich.
But, being aware.
That's true.
Yeah, think about that. If you weren't aware of what was going on, you could have burnt your house down.
That's true. And if you type in BJJ and grilled cheese sandwich on YouTube, there's only going to be one video that shows up, and I'm in that thing. And I'm going to teach you how to make a jiu-jitsu style grilled cheese sandwich. And it's very similar to the time I almost got pickpocketed. Here's how it goes. Yep. You take a toaster. You lay it on its side, and you put some cheese. You butter up your bread, and you put some sliced cheese on each piece of bread, and you put it in the toaster flat. So that way the cheese stays on there nice and, safely there. Well, what happens is the bread starts to get warm, the cheese starts to melt, and then right when it's almost about done, all the debris at the bottom of the toaster basically catches fire because you've laid the darn thing on its side, which is a terrible idea, and a ton of smoke comes out. So the smoke is the same thing as when you feel somebody's trying to steal your wallet. Like, you have to address this right now. And so the correct thing to do when someone steals my wallet is I stop them. You'll have to read about that on the website. The correct thing to do when there's smoke pouring out of your toaster is to stop the toaster from starting an actual fire. And I do that on the video as well. So it's they're basically the same thing. Making a grilled cheese sandwich and stopping a pickpocket, they're pretty close.
Yep.
I like it, Gary.
The lesson everybody can get there is stop it before it gets worse. Stop the pickpocket. Stop the toaster from catching on fire. Man, I can't wait to check that one out.
Gary, you turn the tables on me, man. I like it. But so next week, Gary has an awesome audiobook coming out because I had a good one ready for him, but we're going to save it for next week, and he'll have an amazing audiobook.
Well, the good thing is that means I have a week to prepare for it. You know, I can do my push-ups, my sit-ups, probably eat a little bit better, and I should be ready to crank that book out. Nothing
that you mentioned will help you with this audiobook. It's coming at you at a weird angle, buddy, but you'll be ready. I trust it, and much like my answer for this audiobook is a little bit weird. That audiobook should be out shortly as well. You know, just getting. It's really important to bring the grilled cheese sandwich community and the pickpocket victim community together, and they're stronger as one. Yeah.
Well, the other thing is, while the victims of pickpocket community all get together to talk about it, you could serve grilled cheese sandwiches. I mean, what else would you serve?
Could you imagine being a pickpocket in that crowd?
Well, definitely go to our website, bjjbrick.com, read that article, and then when you're done, tell me that you don't just feel like that pickpocket guy does not know how lucky he got.
Yeah, that's the best part of it. I've got a picture of the guy that's picking my pocket.
Yeah.
And I'm smiling. So that's part of the whole story. You have to read about it. But I have a picture of me and the pickpocket and a couple of his buddies. And I tell you in this picture, his hand is trying to get in the back of my pants. That sounds weird.
That happens to Byron a lot.
Oh man. But, it all makes sense once you hit the website up, and I'll just put a link to that in the show notes because in case it's months down the road and you're listening to this, you could find it easily. But I'm trying to do an article every week, and I've got next week's kind of planned out, or next month article planned out. So, but yep, it was an adventure, and thank goodness I didn't lose my wallet, Gary.
Yep, that's the most important part, because if he did, Byron probably would still be in Burma. He probably wouldn't have been able to make it back here because he wouldn't have had his passport.
I'd been in Burmese jail.
Yeah, yep, and then we would have had some great stories. Maybe you should have stayed there for a little while. Think of the stories we could have told.
Yeah, I can't really podcast out of the Burmese jail because, when my brother-in-law went to get internet, they were told that they ran out of internet. So, they don't have internet.
It's easy to run out.
Yeah, that's what happened there.
Yep,
so
just run out.
But great adventures in Burma and some jiu-jitsu stuff as well. So, but we'll catch you guys next week. Another fun and exciting show. As always, stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.